Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about a truly obsolete cartridge, and it was known as 41 Action Express. It has a very interesting history, and we're going to delve into that in today's video. But before we get started, if you guys enjoy the content that we create here at the Military Arms channel, please take a moment to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell and comment down below. Let us know if you're aware of the 41 Action Express, or especially if you owned a 41 Action Express or one of the many different conversion kits that were out there for your 9mm. All right, with that being said, let's get started with today's video and learn more about this 41 Action Express. We'd like to thank our friends over at primaryarms.com for helping to make today's video possible. If you swing by and check them out and use the code MAC, M-A-C, and you purchase a Primary Arms optic, you'll get a free scope mount with that. Also, if you use that code to pick up a Red Dot sight or one of their Prism sights, you'll get a Kill Flash ARD free with your purchase. So please swing by and check them out. All right, so sitting here in front of me, I have two 10mm handguns. If you follow the channel, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of 10mm. It is an amazing cartridge. And the 10mm was developed right around 1983. The 10mm was a very hot loading when it first came out. The caliber was known for its ballistic performance. It would ultimately be adopted by the FBI after the infamous Dade County shootout that the FBI was involved in, and then that would evolve into the 40 Smith & Wesson because the FBI agents, their qualification scores went down when they adopted the 10mm, and so they had the FBI load, which was a downloaded 10mm, and that gave birth to the 40 Smith & Wesson with less powder. They could trim the case down just a little bit and get it closer in size to the 9mm, which they would replace. They blamed the 9mm for the shortcomings of the particular load that they were using during that shootout. So the 10mm came around 1983. The 10mm really didn't meet with a whole lot of acceptance. Early on, the Bren 10 was the only gun out there that chambered it, but slowly more companies would start manufacturing handguns like this Smith & Wesson. And I have a number of these Smith & Wesson pistols. Maybe I'll do a video on them in the future. If you guys would like to see more of my 10mm Smith & Wesson collection, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to do that video if you guys would be interested in it. So anyway, the 10mm was something of a handful. But the 10mm, because if you take a look at the case, it's considerably longer than the 9mm, which means the magazine, the grip frame, all that stuff has to be longer to accommodate the 10mm. In other words, you couldn't readily convert something like a Browning high power or a CZ75 from 9mm to 10mm. You have to design a gun around that particular caliber. So around 1986, a cartridge known as the 41 Action Express was developed. This was to give more power, if you will, to 9mm handguns. So the cartridge uses a 40 Smith & Wesson 10mm size bullet. It's the exact same size as the 10mm and what would later become the 40 Smith & Wesson. But as you can see, the case is slightly shorter, but what makes it truly unique is the fact that it used what is called a rebated rim. The 10mm has a large head. This is considered the head on a case. And if you look at the 41 Action Express next to it, it tapers down. So the head on this case is actually the same size as a 9mm. With the 41 Action Express, because its overall length was the same as 9mm and it used a rebated rim that was the same size as a 9mm head, you could just swap out the barrel, the recoil spring, and the magazine and convert your 9mm into a 41 Action Express, which kind of touched upon 10mm ballistics. Not completely, but we'll do a whole section in this video talking about the ballistics of the 41 Action Express and the 10mm. But it would definitely give you more power than the 9mm. And so there were companies out there that made factory offerings, a handful for the 41 Action Express, but there were conversion kits for guns like the Browning high power or even 1911s. One of the factory loads was the Jericho, or one of the factory offerings I should say, was the Jericho pistol that came out of Israel. And this was an entire kit that was sold to the customer that had both 9mm and 41 Action Express. The gun would come shipped with the 9mm barrel, magazine, and recoil spring already installed, and then it would have on the side a recoil spring and barrel, and magazines to accommodate the 41 Action Express. So field strip the gun, put it back together with the different barrel and recoil spring, use the 41 Action Express magazine, and boom, you went from 9mm to 41 Action Express, which again would give you kind of low-end 10mm ballistics. So this type of a kit was only on the market for a few years. The 41 Action Express would eventually die out. The 40 Smith & Wesson would come around right around 1990, and that would pretty much put the last nail in the coffin of the 41 Action Express. But up until that point, I remember people buying them and using them because of the increased power. You would even see IWI or IMI back in those days importing the Uzi chambered in the 41 Action Express. I don't happen to have one of those. It would just, again, be a simple conversion to turn it from 9mm into 41 Action Express. But the caliber is truly dead. Nobody, to my knowledge, makes 41 Action Express anymore. This is an example of, it's Uzi branded. I believe it was it Samson? I can't remember. It just says Uzi on the box, but this is an example of factory ammunition. In this case, it has a 200 grain ball round loaded, very similar to the 10mm. Here, I'll set them side by side. So you can see the 41 Action Express next to the 10mm. It came with one box of each, and also 9mm, which has a 115 grain projectile. But since this ammunition is no longer manufactured, and it hasn't been for decades, for our shooting this afternoon to get some ballistics data for you guys, we used a box of 170 grain jacketed hollow points that was already missing a round from the box. And so this is what we wound up using for our ballistics tests. So there's an example of two different factory loadings of the 41 Action Express. So let's take a look and discuss the differences in terms of ballistics between the 10mm and the 41 Action Express, and see how close the 41 Action Express in factory loadings that we have access to actually came to 10mm performance. I get asked all the time, Mac, how can I get involved in the firearms industry? Well, there's no easy answer, but one way you can easily get involved in the firearms industry is to become a certified gunsmith. Modern Gun School has been teaching gunsmiths since 1945. It is accredited college, and also if you're a veteran and have a GI Bill, you can use that to enroll at Modern Gun School. So please swing by and check them out. I have a link in the video description below. So here's our breakdown of the performance of each of the different loads that we fired out here this afternoon out of three different types of handguns. So we're going to start off at the top here with the Smith & Wesson pistol in 10mm, and it was chosen because of its 4-inch barrel. We were trying to find a barrel that was of comparable length to the Jericho, and the Jericho has a barrel of 4.3 inches. So the Smith & Wesson has a slightly shorter barrel. This is the Smith & Wesson handgun that we're going to be talking about initially with the 4-inch barrel. So in taking a look at the Smith & Wesson, we fired a Federal Hydroshock 180 grain load, and we clocked that at 997 feet per second, which gave us 397 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Then we took the same Smith & Wesson, fired a different 180 grain load. This is a Federal Full Metal Jacket. This is the American Eagle stuff. And that gave us a muzzle velocity of 968 feet per second, which in turn gave us 375 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Taking the next load, which is 180 grain Federal Bonded Jacketed Soft Point. This is considered a hunting load for medium game. We had a muzzle velocity out of the Smith & Wesson of 1124 feet per second, which in turn gave us 505 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And then last, out of the Smith & Wesson, we fired 180 grain Buffalo Bore Jacketed Hollow Point, and this gave us a muzzle velocity out of the 4-inch barrel of 1302 feet per second and a 678 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. That's pretty spicy, all right? So that's pretty powerful, especially out of a 4-inch barrel. Over here we just have the dates This is my cheat sheet for the release of each of the calibers. I should say the cartridges. I keep mistakenly calling it a caliber. One of our viewers called me on it, so now I'm trying to speak properly. It is a cartridge of the 3 cartridges and their release dates. All right, so next we took the 41 Action Express, which has a 4.3-inch barrel, and we fired it out of the 941 Jericho. And we only used the 170 grain jacketed hollow point because I only have 1 box of the 200 grain stuff. I'm going to hold on to it. We used that jacketed hollow point because, again, I took it out of a box that was already missing around. So that 170 grain jacketed hollow point out of the 4.3-inch barrel gave us a muzzle velocity of 1,109 feet per second, which in turn gave us 464 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So if you take a look up here with these federal loads, you'll see that 464 fits in right between the 180 grain full metal jacket and the bonded jacketed soft point for hunting, which was the hottest load out here until we got to the buffalo bore, which is loaded to extremes. Buffalo bore is known for their extremely hot loads. All right, so going down here to the SIG, we brought it out because it has a 4.8-inch barrel, which gave us a little bit more barrel than the 41 Action Express out of the Jericho. And then we fired these 2 different loads out of it. And the SIG, which is right here, with the 180 grain federal bonded jacketed soft point, the hunting load, medium game, it gave us 1,210 feet per second with a muzzle energy of 585 foot-pounds. So if you take a look at that same load up here, it was 1124 with a slightly longer barrel. We get 1210 out of it. So we do see a notable increase in velocity. And then the second load that we fired out of it was the buffalo bore, the super hot stuff, 180 grain, and that gave us a muzzle velocity of 1,372 feet per second with a muzzle energy of 756 foot-pounds of energy. That's pretty substantial. So if you take a look at this velocity from the Smith & Wesson up here, the buffalo bore gave us 1,302. Down here, we picked up 70 feet per second, and we bumped up that muzzle energy. So the 10 millimeter definitely has more power than the 41 Action Express. So if you take a look at the 41 Action Express and compare it to a modern day 40 Smith & Wesson load, you're going to see they're pretty comparable. That's why the 41 Action Express no longer exists. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at modern 9mm plus P plus loads from buffalo bore, you'll find that you can get up to 500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy out of a 115 grain projectile being pushed extremely fast. So 9mm can be loaded to such velocities that it can give you as much or more power than the 41 Action Express. And then, of course, we have the 40 Smith & Wesson, which became tremendously popular after the FBI adopted it, which again gives us similar performance to the 41 Action Express. So now you can see why the 41 AE went to the wayside. I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion about the 41 Action Express. It's a very interesting cartridge from the past. It is truly obsolete. Again, I'm not aware of anybody currently loading for it. The brass would be the hardest thing to come by. Now, I know there are people out there that try to keep things like this alive, but I'm unaware, I should say, of anybody out there that's making the cases. So without those cases, you're going to have a hard time reloading for it. Even then, there's really no point to it because 10 millimeters back on the rise, and 40 Smith & Wesson is already out there, and this is pretty much a 40 Smith & Wesson, at least based upon the testing that we did this afternoon. Now, there are some old articles out there that claim that the 41 Action Express is more powerful than it really is in some factory loads. Perhaps that's the case, and I just don't have access to those factory loads. All we have is the Uzi brand ammunition out here this afternoon. So I look forward to the comments down below, guys. If you have any experience with the 41 Action Express, I would enjoy reading those experiences down there, again, in the comments section. Guys, if you would like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. You'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications, and we've built a really fun online community over there. Again, the link is down below to Patreon in the video description. Also, guys, if you would like to support us right here on YouTube, there's a little join button right underneath the video player you're watching right now. Please click that join button and consider supporting us here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.